to gently begin the journey just before chapter 1 unfolds. Tonight, you drift not toward silence, but toward the hum of something very old. Older than pyramids, older than Rome. Here in the hush between two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, someone once pressed a reed into soft clay and wrote the first word. Not to shout, but to remember. Not to dazzle, but to dream. This is Mesopotamia, the quiet cradle of everything. Cities will rise here, slow and careful as breath. Laws will form, grain will grow, stars will be counted, but there will be no noise, only the soft rhythm of human hands beginning again. You do not need to understand it all. You only need to lie back, close your eyes, and let the ancient dust settle around your thoughts. Let the rivers flow beside your sleep. The story is ready to begin. You arrive not in a palace or city, but in silence. The land is flat, unhurried, brushed with wind and the scent of waterlogged earth. Here, between two ancient rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, something older than history begins to breathe. The sky above is endless, washed in gold at its edges, like parchment waiting to be written upon. The ground beneath you is soft with silt, as if it remembers the flood waters that once held it in their arms. You take a slow breath, and the world does not respond with noise. It listens. This is not a place that declares itself. Mesopotamia, the land between rivers, was never meant to shout. It was meant to hold, to cradle, to gather seeds and stories in the soft bowl of its geography and let them grow slowly, like wheat rising through mud. This place did not need walls to be powerful. It had water, it had rhythm, and it had time. The rivers flow beside you, not rushing, not pausing. Their movement is like thought curving, remembering, returning. They carry more than water. They carry the slow unfolding of the human voice. In their reflection, you see not your own face, but the outline of another, a child, perhaps, squatting by the bank thousands of years ago, watching reeds sway, pressing the first shape into a ball of clay with a sharpened stick. That single mark was not art, it was memory. It was a way to say, this happened. And the river, patient as always, carried the echo onward. The first breath of civilization was not a war cry, it was a lullaby, a mother humming in a hut of mud brick while crickets sang beyond the threshold, a pot left to cool near the fire, a date seed planted by a stream. These were the quiet beginnings of everything. Agriculture did not arrive like a storm, it arrived like sleep. Slowly, gently, people stayed long enough to plant, long enough to wait, long enough to realize the rivers would return with their offerings if only they were listened to, and so they listened. The soil, dark and fertile, was not owned but honored. It yielded wheat and barley, lentils and onions, not in abundance at first, but in trust. The farmers shaped the land with canals and levees, not with force, but with fingers. Their tools were simple, carved from wood or stone. Their lives were measured not in hours, but in harvests. A good year meant warmth through the winter. A bad one meant you learned how to pray. And prayer in Mesopotamia was not loud. It was practical. It was woven into daily acts, into the digging of ditches, the storing of grain, the kneading of bread. You walk now through fields long swallowed by centuries, but you feel the shape of them still, the ghosts of furrows and footpaths, the pattern of labor soft as breath. This was not yet empire, not yet writing, but already the human story had started to unfurl its pages in clay and water. Shelter came next, homes not built to impress, but to endure. Made of mud brick dried beneath a sun so constant it became a kind of clock. The walls were cool in the day and warm at night. There were no fortresses, no walls of stone, just clusters of homes huddled like thoughts, strung together by proximity and need. Community formed not from law, but from hunger, from memory, from shared tools and shared children. They slept on woven mats. They lit fires. They spoke in early tongues, soft and shaped by breath. Language itself had not yet solidified, but even then, people named what they loved: river, seed, child, star. At night, they looked up. The sky, in Mesopotamia, is a kind of scripture. Its clarity speaks to eternity. The constellations had not yet been mapped, but their presence was already known. You imagine an old man pointing upward to a child, tracing stories between the stars with a calloused finger. That one is the hunter, he might have said. That one is the lion. These myths, though unrecorded, became the scaffolding of belief, the whispered truths that guided sleep, and from these whispers, gods began to form not as distant judges, but as patterns in wind, in water, in the folds of fortune and the tilt of weather. The rivers became more than rivers. They became personalities, givers and takers, lovers and destroyers. The storm did not simply come, it was sent. The flood did not simply rise, it remembered. And to honor these forces, people began to build not monuments, but gestures, small offerings of grain, bits of meat, folded palms pressed together in quiet thanks. You walk now toward the place where the first city will rise, though it has not yet taken shape. Eridu, they will call it, or maybe Uruk, a gathering of huts at first, then shrines, then walls. But here, in this in-between moment, it is only a dream taking form. Smoke from cook-fires rises in ribbons. The air hums with insect song and the shuffle of bare feet. Children chase goats between reed fences. A woman sings a tune she did not invent, but inherited. In time they will invent the wheel. They will build canals that curve like arms across the plain. They will measure time by shadows and stars. They will press their voices into clay and learn to read what was once only spoken. But tonight, all of that is still sleeping. Tonight, you walk through the hush of becoming. There is a scent in the air-wet earth and olive wood. Somewhere, a clay pot is boiling lentils. The sound of water lapping against a boat's edge is steady like breath. You sit on the riverbank, watching the sky deepen. The moon rises slowly, soft as a peeled pearl. In the distance, someone calls out to another in a language without letters. It sounds like wind across reeds. The rivers shimmer in the dark. They are not just bodies of water. They are memory. They are lullabies that have rocked the cradle of the human spirit for 10,000 years. And even now, in this quiet hour, they flow not only through land, but through you. The stars blink above, the earth cools beneath you, and as you lie back, eyes soft with wonder, you feel the first chapter of history settle gently into your sleep. The rivers breathe, the earth listens, and the dream continues. It is morning now in the land between rivers, but the light does not rush. It spills gently over mud brick walls, and the slow curve of rooftops shaped like sleeping backs. The city of Uruk wakes not, with bells or horns, but with the hush of opening doors, with the creak of carts and the whisper of sandals brushing dust. You are not in a ruin. You are walking inside a moment that once lived fully and still lingers. This is Sumer, the world's first true city, and it speaks not in thunder, but in the soft press of reeds into clay. There is a man at a small wooden table. His hands are firm but slow. In his left palm he holds a tablet of wet earth, dark and pliable. In his right, a stylus carved from reed. He leans forward, eyes steady, and begins to press. Not to draw, not to decorate, but to remember. Line by line, wedge by wedge, he inscribes the pulse of a world that cannot yet read itself. His gestures are gentle, rhythmic, almost sacred. Here, writing does not explode. It seeps. The language of Sumer is not spoken first. It is shaped pressed into clay, tablet after tablet, day after day. The earliest symbols are not stories or poems. They are lists, inventories of grain, records of sheep, measures of oil, proof that what passed through one pair of hands was meant for another. This was not art, it was memory made visible, and that, in its own way, was the first miracle of writing. To keep something from vanishing. You watch him finish his inscription. He sets the tablet aside to dry in the sun. Later, someone will stack it in a room filled with hundreds more. This is not yet a library, but it is becoming one. A collection of moments not meant to be lost. Outside, the city breathes. Uruk is not large by modern measure, but it feels infinite because it is new and full and awake. Houses lie narrow. Alleys, their walls made of baked earth and sweat. Palm trees lean over courtyards where children trace patterns in the dust. Vendors unfold cloths filled with barley, garlic, fish dried in curls like sleep. Somewhere a flute plays a tune no one remembers writing. It simply exists, part of the air, like the heat and the scent of cumin. The Sumerians do not yet think of themselves as ancient. They are simply alive. They walk, they build, they mark time by sun and season. They pray not with grandeur, but with repetition. Every act is a kind of offering. Every pattern repeated is a prayer. And above them, the ziggurat rises, not made for gods to descend, but for humans to reach upward, slowly, one brick at a time. At the foot of the ziggurat, a priest pours water from one clay bowl to another. It's not the act that matters. It's the care, the pause, the precision. The Sumerians believed that the world was fragile, balanced between chaos and order, and that it was their duty to help maintain that balance by farming well, by offering, gently, by measuring and recording and repeating. To write was to keep the cosmos in rhythm. To neglect it was to invite disorder. And so they wrote, on tablets, on seals, on temple walls. Cuneiform, they called it, wedge-shaped because of the stylus marks it left behind. It began with pictures. A fish looked like a fish, a house like a house, but slowly it abstracted, evolved, adapted. It became sound, not just shape. It began to carry thought. And once that happened, everything changed. You walk through a scribe's school in Edinburgh, they call it. Young boys sit in rows, each with a damp tablet and stylus, repeating the same signs again and again. The room smells of earth and sweat, and determination. There are no books, only clay. No ink, only pressure. They do not speak while they write. Their silence is the sound of knowledge entering the world. Outside, a woman sweeps her doorway with a bundle of reeds. Her son returns from the fields with a jar of water. In the distance, farmers press seeds into furrows softened by the last flood. The city lives in cycles, planting, harvesting, storing, marking. The scribes record it all, not just for the present, but for someone later. Perhaps for you, you pass a potter at his wheel. He does not look up, but his movements are calm, practiced, graceful. Around him are jars, each marked with a small symbol, proof of contents, or ownership, or destination. The marks matter. They speak when the potter is not there. This is what writing has done. It has made speech endure. It has made memory mobile. A pot now travels with a name, a measure, a voice. Later that night, you stand beside a scribe as he records a poem. It's not his poem. It's been passed down from lips to ears for generations. But tonight, it will live in clay. The tale is of a king, part man, part god, who seeks meaning in the world. His name is Gilgamesh. The scribe copies each line carefully, his hands steady. This is no longer mere record. It is literature. And though the city sleeps outside, in this room something eternal stirs. A story has crossed from air into earth, and it will not be lost. You close your eyes and hear the voices in the poem, the weeping of Enkidu, the thunder of distant gods, the flood that washes everything clean. And beneath all that drama, the soft truth that humans seek meaning, that we mourn, that we remember, and that we need something to hold those memories when we are gone. The scribe finishes. He signs his name not boldly, but humbly at the edge of the tablet. He does not write for glory. He writes so that something will last. You step outside. The night air is warm. The stars blink overhead, familiar and ancient. Somewhere a river murmurs in the dark. You walk its edge, barefoot. The mud cool beneath your feet, and you think of the clay tablet now drying behind you. Inside it are symbols, and inside those symbols, ideas, feelings, stories, a voice pressed into earth. Tomorrow, someone may read it, or not. The tablet may break, or not. The river may rise, or not. But for now, it endures. For now, Suma whispers in wet clay, and the whisper is enough. You stand at the base of something vast, but it does not tower with arrogance. It rises instead with rhythm, layer by layer, step by silent step. It reaches not into the heavens with force, but with patience. A ziggurat does not pierce the sky. It cradles it in the soft morning light. The bricks glow with the colors of dry riverbanks, cinnamon, warm clay. Their surfaces are chipped by wind, kissed by centuries, but they hold. They hold the dreams of a people who looked up not to conquer the sky, but to speak with it. This is not a pyramid. It is not sealed. It does not hide. It opens upward, invites ascent. It is a staircase for the soul. The air smells of baked dust and faint myrrh. Around you, the city murmurs awake. Yor or Uruk or Eridu, each of these cities raised cigarettes of their own, temples layered like sleeping thoughts. This one belongs to no single name now. It belongs to time, to the rhythm of building, praying, remembering. You touch the first step. It is warm already, though the sun has only just risen. You begin to climb. There are no rails, no torches, only the steady repetition of stone beneath your feet. Each platform rises above the last, square upon square, like the rings of a poem slowly ascending toward silence. The higher you go, the quieter it becomes. The city falls away in murmurs, the markets, the fires, the hum of carts and footsteps. All of it becomes distant, softened, as if the ziggurat itself were filtering the world into something sacred. you stop for a breath. From here, you can see the river winding through the plain like a strand of silk. You can see rooftops glinting with clay tiles. But more than that, you can feel the presence of intention, thousands of hands that placed these bricks, each shaped from mud and straw, dried in the sun, lifted on shoulders, stacked with purpose. This was not the work of kings alone. It was a labor of many, not built in a year, not even in a generation, but passed down piece by piece, like language. Above you, the next platform waits. The climb continues, not just upward, but inward. With every step, you feel time thickening around you, not as burden, but as blanket. You are walking through memory now, not space. You imagine the priestesses who once ascended these steps in the hush before dawn, bearing offerings of fruit and incense. You imagine astronomers placing bowls of water on the upper tiers to catch the reflection of stars. You imagine wind and prayer and the delicate sound of sandals on stone. At the summit, the shrine awaits. It is not grand. It is not heavy with gold or statues. It is smaller pan on all sides, so the sky may enter. Inside, an altar, a table, a bowl of fire, and beside it, a figure in white robes, kneeling, not speaking, simply being. This is the house of the mountain, the bridge between the human and the divine. But there is no thunder here, no miracle, just quiet. You sit beside the shrine, not to worship, but to breathe. The air is thinner here, not because of altitude, but because of clarity. The sky is close. The wind carries no sand, only stillness. And for a moment, you forget where you are. You forget when you are. You are simply present, like the brick, like the shrine, like the star. Ziggurats were not tombs. They were not fortresses. They were not monuments to ego. They were built to bring human breath closer to celestial breath. Not by flight, but by patience. Not through conquest, but through stillness. The priests who tended them did not cry out. They whispered. Their rituals were simple. Pouring water, burning herbs, offering bread, watching the sky. And from these acts, the calendar was born. The zodiac, the sacred geometry of days. You descend. Now, slowly. Not because you must, but because everything returns, even prayer, even wind, even breath. The steps carry you back toward the earth, but not away from the divine. You carry the divine with you now, gently, like a secret folded in your chest. At the base of the ziggurat, life continues. Children chase each other around its shadow. A woman balances a jar of oil on her head, her feet firm against the ground. A scribe walks past with a bundle of clay tablets under one arm. None of them look up. The ziggurat is not spectacle. It is simply there, like the sky, like time. Like sleep, you sit in the shade of one of its great platforms. The bricks beside you are warm from the sun. You run your hand along their surface and feel grooves left by fingers long gone. There are thumbprints, a nick where a goat once scraped. Its horn, a line of cuneiform someone scrawled into drying clay, illegible now, but still present, still part of the pattern. In the distance, you hear the call of a shepherd, the bleating of sheep, the clatter of a pot lid. These are not interruptions, they are music. The everyday notes of a civilization that lived not in grand events, but in rhythm. The ziggurat did not end the day, it began it, with presence, with intention, with a climb into silence before returning to noise. Later that night, you return to it not to climb, but to watch. In the moonlight, it becomes a silhouette serene, unmoving, eternal, a shadowed mountain among stars. You lie back on the earth, the bricks at your back, the sky unfolding. Above, the shrine at the summit is dark now, but not empty. It holds something quiet, something enduring, a stillness that echoes downward, step by step, into your bones. You close your eyes, and the steps rise within you, each platform a memory, each brick a breath. You dream not of gods, but of gravity, of rhythm, of soft intention carried upward. The ziggurat is no longer beside you, it is within you, a staircase your thoughts climb slowly, without fear. And as sleep gathers you, as the night deepens, the final step vanishes into silence. Evening settles like silk across the land, folding softly over mud-brick walls and narrow lanes. The sun sinks behind the edge of the desert, leaving behind a sky the color of darkened clay, streaked with plum and violet. And beneath that sky you come to your not in daylight, not in ceremony, but as night begins to hum gently in the spaces between stones. The city is not asleep yet, but it is drifting. The sounds are fewer, the fires smaller, the voices hushed. You step through the gates not as a visitor, but as a dream passing quietly through the body of time. Yours does not greet you with grandeur, it welcomes you with rhythm. The sound of sandals brushing dust, the creak of wooden doors, the low murmurs of women pulling water from wells. You feel the air warm on your skin, still clinging to the heat of the day. It carries the scent of lentils, charcoal, and sheep. Somewhere nearby, a pot simmers above a flame. A child laughs once, then stops, as if the night reminded him that it was time to listen, not speak. The streets are narrow, turning and turning as if the city itself is caught in thought. You walk slowly, your fingers grazing the walls, your feet silent on packed earth. Here, in the quiet spaces between homes, history has settled like dust. Not monumental, not loud, but soft and certain, like a mother's hand resting on a child's back. The city does not need to be remembered. It simply is. Above you, the moon rises, round, luminous, full of ancient eyes. The people of yore know this moon well. They call it Nana, the moon god, guardian of dreams, listener of prayers spoken in sleep. His great temple looms not far away, its walls heavy with devotion, its steps worn smooth by thousands of feet climbing toward stillness. You will go there soon, but not yet. For now, the city calls you closer. You pass a doorway where an old man kneels beside a small fire, turning a piece of flatbread with careful fingers. He nods at you, not with surprise, but with recognition, as if you've always walked these streets, as if memory is less about the past and more about finding the present deeply enough. A woman sits nearby, combing the hair of a girl with sleepy eyes. She hums a song you do not understand, but the melody folds into you like a lullaby from another life. The houses are simple square, flat-roofed, built with care and coated in white lime. Small courtyards open to the sky. Inside, oil lamps flicker, their flames dancing against walls etched with soft patterns. The rooms are low and dark, cool against the heat of the day, holding the scent of cooking, of skin, of time. Here, people do not chase meaning, they live it, in the way they grind grain, in the way they press dates into paste, in the way they sit close together after the sun has gone. You pause before a shrine tucked into the corner of an alley. A small clay statue rests atop a worn wooden table, its hands folded. It is not grand, it is not famous, but someone lights a wick each evening. Someone places a few lentils at its feet. The gods in yore are not always mighty. Sometimes they are just present, above. The ziggurat watches silently. Its steps are dark now, its summit hidden in shadow. But the people believe the moon has touched it, that Nana has rested there, and so it remains sacred. From the temple's outer court, soft chanting floats like mist. You cannot hear the words, only the cadence, a prayer that has no need of translation. It speaks to the hush in your chest, to the place inside you that has always known how to listen. You walk on. You see a potter's wheel stilled for the night, a basket of fresh figs covered with cloth, a goat tethered in sleep, its ears twitching. At a sound only it hears. The details are small, but together they form something vast. Yore does not shine with jewels or echo with glory. It glows, softly, like the last coal in a hearth, like the breath before sleep. You reach the temple at last, its base wide, its walls cool in the moonlight. You climb the outer steps slowly, your fingers trailing the stones, worn smooth by centuries of hope. Inside the courtyard, shadows dance. There are priests here, barefoot and silent, tending to the flame of Nana. You do not speak, you simply sit at the edge beneath a date palm, and feel the presence of something older than the city itself, something like stillness made visible. The rituals are simple. Water poured from one jar to another, dates laid out on a cloth, a bowl of milk offered in silence. This is not spectacle. This is presence. Each act is a reminder that the divine lives not in thunder, but in rhythm, not in fear, but in trust. The moon watches all, and the city, in return, gives its breath back slowly, gently, like a child falling asleep. You close your eyes, dot in your mind, the city continues. Merchants will rise with the dawn. Scribes will unwrap their tablets and begin to inscribe the days. Transactions. Fishermen will return to the river with baskets of tilapia. Children will play in the dust, and the temple will receive its offerings again. But none of that is now. The city sleeps, its breath slow, its walls warm. And you, somewhere between dream and memory, are part of it. Before maps knew how to hold its name, before time could anchor it in ink, a card rose softly, like vapor, above the warm earth, like mist that gathers where the air cools after sun. You do not walk into our card. You feel it arriving, a change in the rhythm of things, a slight pressure in the wind, a deep breath held before the world speaks a new syllable. The city itself is gone now, its streets, its walls, its towers lost. Beneath layers of silence, archaeologists search, but the dust holds its secrets tight. And yet you feel it still, just beneath the skin of history, pulsing. For Akkad was more than clay and stone. It was idea. It was momentum. It was the first time the world gathered itself into something larger than a village, larger than a city. It was empire. And it began not with a sword, but with a man who believed the world could be named. His name was Sargon, a child placed in a basket of reeds and set adrift like a whisper on a river. He rose not from royalty, but from the soft places, the banks of water, the hush of labor, the breath of dreams spoken by servants in candlelight. And somehow he lifted himself from obscurity, not with violence alone, but with the sharpness of mind. He unified the Sumerian cities, not all at once, not easily, but steadily, like a potter shaping stubborn clay into something round and whole. You imagine him walking between temples once divided by war, now joined by quiet agreement. Imagine the first time the word Akkadian meant not just a person, but a people, a language, a bond. His scribes carried his words across lands where no road yet reached. His governors bore his seals into cities whose gates had never opened before, and in each new place his name was pressed into clay not as conqueror, but as presence. The people of Akkad did not build their empire with thunder. They built it with scribes, with messengers, with trade caravans that stretched like veins. Across the land, gold from Anatolia, cedar from Lebanon, lapis lazuli from far eastern mountains. Akkad became not only a power, but a channel away for the world to speak to itself. You walk now in that imagined capital. The streets are lined with homes made of the same mud brick as your, but here the accents are different. The dialect rolls on the tongue with new vowels. The faces reflect not only one people, but many Amorites, Sumerians, Elamites, all woven together by law, language, and the steady beat of administration. Here, the scribes write, not only for record, but for rule. Edicts, decrees, communications, that bind people miles apart into one breath. But Akkad is not only government, it is movement. You see its markets brimming with cloth and metal, jars of wine, bundles of garlic, bolts of wool dyed deep red. You see soldiers pass, but not in haste. You see builders and engineers drawing plans on wax with careful hands. This is a city that dreams outward dreams that the world can be held. Named, ordered, and yet, you feel something else to dot. A KKAD rises fast, but it is light on the earth. It floats, almost. There are no ziggurats here like those in Uruk, no temples that reach the stars. Here, the sky is not ascended, but reflected in silver coins, in maps, in seals. You feel the shimmer of ambition, but not yet the weight of roots. The empire grows, yes, but like a flame stretching upward, never pausing to sink deep. Years pass. The names of kings follow Sargon Rimush, Manishtushu, Naramsin, the one who dares to call himself God. His image carved in stone, wearing a horned helmet, standing atop enemies. The stele of his reign shows triumph, but it whispers pride, the kind that echoes louder than prayer. You look at it now, in a museum far from where it was found, and you wonder if this was the moment Akkad tipped from breath into boast. Then come the signs. Not loud, not at first. Crops falter, rains thin, trade slows. Dust gathers along old caravan paths. The scribes keep writing, but the tone changes. There are tablets now that speak of famine, of water gone, of cities crying out for grain, and still the words continue beautiful, exact, desperate. You read one now. The gods have turned their faces. The wind does not listen. It is not poetry, it is record. It is the moment when presence begins to fade. AKD does not fall in fire. It does not shatter like glass. It vanishes like vapor, returning to the air it once gathered. One day the scribes stopped writing. One day the messengers did not return. The seals broke in the sun, and the dust covered what remained. You stand now on that dust. Nothing rises here anymore. No walls, no gates, just wind carrying the echoes of a city that changed the world and then gave itself back to it. Akkad is not mourned with ceremony. It is remembered in silence, in the thin lines of cuneiform that survived long enough to be read again, in the faint memories carried by empires that followed, and in you, for in every word we write, every road we trace across a map, every attempt to make a many into one, The breath of Akkad lingers. Sargon's dream of unity, of presence, of voice, across distance, never vanished. It simply changed shape. The moon rises. The stars return. You sit on a stone that may once have been part of a wall, or a temple, or a home. It doesn't matter. What matters is the breeze, the hush, the feeling that someone once stood here and looked at the sky and wondered what might come next. Akkad rose. Akkad vanished, but the breath continues. The tablet waits, resting not in a museum glass case, but on a simple wooden table. Its surface curved slightly with time, its marks still etched with care. You lean closer, not to study, not to judge, but to listen. For this is no ordinary writing. This is a promise left behind in baked earth, a lullaby of order sung in the language of stone. And the man who shaped it, King Hammurabi, rests not in legend, but in the soft creases of law. You arrive in Babylon, not as a tourist, but as a breath among reeds. The river Euphrates cuts through the city like a deep blue ribbon, winding beside gardens and shrines. You hear its low murmur, steady, like the turning of thoughts. Babylon does not boast. It glows. Its bricks are polished. Its streets wide. Palms lean against the walls like sleepy sentinels. You feel the rhythm of administration in the footsteps around you. This is a city tuned to the quiet beat of responsibility. Hammurabi's presence is not thunderous. He does not speak from balconies. He does not stride through markets in a blaze of armor. Instead, he listens. He walks among judges and scribes. He reads what people bring him, not just stories, but situations. A stolen goat, a disputed wall, a merchant wronged by weights and measures. To others, these are fragments. To Hammurabi, they are symptoms. And slowly, with care, he begins to write a world where fairness is not a hope, but a structure. The laws do not scream. They do not bend with poetry. But in their firmness, they soothe. They begin with invocation, not to might, but to the gods who measure balance. Shamash, the sun god, the bringer of justice, stands beside Hammurabi in stone carvings, handing him a rod and a ring, not weapons, but tools of measurement. What you feel as you run your hand over these ancient lines is not force, it is calibration, a desire to weigh the world gently. There are hundreds of laws pressed into clay, carved into stone. Some sound harsh now, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But even here, you sense a yearning for equilibrium. For centuries before, there were only vengeance and custom. Now, there is a frame, an expectation, a way to say, this is how we live together, not with chaos, but with rhythm, not with whim, but with words. You sit beside a scribe who copies the laws line by line. His hands are stained with clay. His face is calm. For him, this is not just labor, it is belief made visible. The tablet he shapes today will sit in a temple, or a market, or perhaps the doorway of a judge's home. It will be seen, not to intimidate, but to remind. Justice here is not shouted, it is known. You pass through the court of law. There is no gavel, no rows of polished seats, just a shaded room, a few stone benches, a scribe, and a judge with silver. In his beard, a woman stands before him, her voice measured. She speaks of land her brother claims was his. The judge listens. He asks questions. The scribe records. In this moment, you feel the clay solidify again, not physically, but morally. A system is breathing here, quietly, one that sees, hears, and records. Later, in the stillness of the city, You find yourself before the great black stele, over 7 feet tall, smooth, towering. Upon its surface, the full code, carved from top to bottom, each law stacked like steps. The upper part shows Hammurabi receiving instruction from Shamash. But the rest, it is all language, all care, all structure. You don't read it like a proclamation. You follow it like a path. And what strikes you most is that it tries. It does not pretend to fix everything. It does not promise peace without conflict, but it attempts. It recognizes theft. It acknowledges grief. It offers answers, not perfect, but present. That is what soothes you. Not that everything is solved, but that someone tried to shape justice out of chaos and chose clay over the sword. You walk now through Babylon at dusk. The city slows. Lamps flicker to life. The Euphrates reflects the last light of day. You see the silhouettes of people closing shop doors, feeding goats, gathering children. The laws live here not in courts alone, but in gestures, in fairness offered without demand, in weights that balance truly, in streets that belong to all. In a small square, a teacher recites one of the laws to a group of boys seated cross-legged on woven mats. The language is stiff, yes, but the boys repeat it softly with curiosity. One asks a question. The teacher answers. There is no punishment, here only understanding. Even learning is part of the structure. Even curiosity is measured. You reach the top of a quiet tower. Below you, the city spreads wide and drowsy. Babylon's towers do not pierce the stars. They lean toward them, open-palmed. You think of Hammurabi not as a king who conquered, but as a king who clarified. His legacy is not one of lands taken, but lives touched. A city made more livable by law, a breath steadied by order. The wind moves gently through your hair. Somewhere a pot boils, a gate closes. A temple drum sounds once, then stops. These sounds are not governed by law, but they happen within its safe, structured, soft. You lie back. The stars blink awake above you, and the black stele stands somewhere behind you, still holding its lines, still holding the weight of a king's voice that chose to speak not in command, but in care. Sleep finds you easily, for the world tonight has edges, known and gentle, like the border of a tablet, like the sentence that ends not in force, but in peace. You arrive at dawn, just before the gates open. The city looms not in brightness, but in outline, like a mountain built by human hands. Walls taller than your imagination stretch in both directions. Their faces are carved with lions and wings, with gods that walk like men and men who kneel like shadows. You do not enter by chance. You enter by permission. This is Nineveh, or Ashur, or Kalhu. The names shift like tides, but the empire does not waver. It watches. The guards let you pass without speech. They do not need to speak. Their silence is not absence. It is policy. Behind their stillness stands an empire that has learned the art of power not only through conquest, but through containment, through the way quiet can weigh heavier than sound. As you walk deeper, the air itself thickens. With memory, this is not a city that celebrates. This is a city that remembers. You move through avenues lined with carvings, slabs of stone bearing rows of soldiers, kneeling captives, kings in chariots pulled by horses with flaring nostrils. Yet the faces do not gloat. They are calm, too. Calm. These are not expressions of joy. They are instructions. They teach the world what order looks like. A fixed gaze, a symmetrical beard, a hand raised not to bless, but to claim. You pass courtyards where scribes etch reports into tablets the color of dusk. These are not poems. These are borders held, land subdued, grain taken, tribute paid. Assyria is not ashamed of this. It documents everything. Its memory is administrative, exhaustive, cold. But beneath that coldness pulses an ancient fire, the belief that civilization is too precious to leave unordered, too fragile to leave you unordered. In the palace, your footsteps echo across slabs of polished stone. Here, the king once walked, Tigris, Sargon, Dua, Ashurbanipal. Names like storms spoken over flat lands. You do not feel welcomed, but you do not feel endangered. You are inside a system that assumes obedience, not cruelly, completely. Even beauty here has an edge. You stand before the throne, not golden, not jeweled, but large, geometric, certain. Above it, an image of the king hunting lions. The animal charges. The king draws his bow. The moment is frozen. Power is not shown in victory. It is shown in the calm before it, the thunder before the strike. The Assyrians knew this well. They did not need to destroy to dominate. They needed to be seen waiting. Outside the palace walls, you wander through the quiet streets of the common districts. The markets are orderly. The looms hum. Children do not shout, they murmur. You feel the structure in their play, as if even their laughter had rules. This is not because of fear alone. It is because the system is strong enough to shape thought. People do not just obey Assyria. They live inside its rhythm. And yet, there is art here, reliefs that shimmer with detail. Libraries filled with tablets, copied and catalogued. The Assyrians loved knowledge, but not for wonder, for record, for control. Ashurbanipal, king scholar, collected thousands of tablets from across Mesopotamia, not to read all of them, to own them, to possess even memory itself. You sit. Now in that library, the walls are cool, the light dim, but the clay speaks. Tales of flood, kings, medicine, omens. You run your hand across the surface of one tablet, and the cuneiform grooves whisper, "This was not written in joy, it was written to endure." Even truth here is carved with purpose. You step outside, the wind picks up slightly, carrying with it the distant sound of a chisel. Another wall being shaped, another image of the king, arms outstretched, receiving tribute. You notice something. The scale is always the same. The king is always tallest. The enemies always smaller. Art here does not reflect. It arranges. Reality made obedient. But not all things can be ordered. Eventually, the cracks appeared. Babylon rebelled. Cities once silenced began to murmur again. Egypt turned inward, and as the empire stretched, it thinned. The silence became too wide. The watchers could not watch everything. One by one, the borders frayed. And then came the Medes, the Babylonians. Together, they moved like evening shadow. Nineveh fell not quickly, but completely. The gates were broken. The statues toppled. The libraries burned or buried, and the silence returned. But this time, it was not policy. It was absence. You stand. Now on a hill of dust and crushed stone. The wind blows through scattered bricks. Somewhere beneath your feet, tablets still lion-red, unopened, asleep in time. Assyria is gone, but it does not haunt. It rests. Its strength has cooled into stone. And yet, something lingers in the way we map the world, in the way we guard borders, in the way we write history as if it can be held. That stillness behind the eyes, that thunder behind the page, it lives, and you, lying beneath the stars tonight, feel it in your ribs, not as fear, but as weight, as the memory of order too strong to last. Sleep comes slowly here, but when it comes, it is full of stone lions, silent kings, and tablets whispering in dark libraries, waiting still to be read again. You find yourself at the edge of a breeze that smells like memory, sweet and damp, tinged with earth, warmed by morning sun. Around you, the whisper of leaves brushing each other, of distant fountains sighing. But when you open your eyes fully, there is only dust, a ridge of stone, a dry riverbed, the bones of a city called Babylon. And yet, in your mind, the air is green. They called them the Hanging Gardens, though no one agrees on the name, the place, or the hands that planted them. Some say Nebuchadnezzar built them for his queen, who missed the mountains of her childhood. Others say they belonged to Nineveh, and not to Babylon at all. Still others doubt they ever bloomed at all. But even doubt cannot erase a dream that smells so strongly of shade. So you follow the scent inward, through the ruins of palaces and temples, through archways crumbled but still patient. Babylon is a city of lines and layers, roads carved into dust, foundations buried beneath newer walls, names recarved after old ones faded. But somewhere in its heart, or in its echo, something softer waits, a vision, a story, a structure of trees. The gardens, as they are told, rose like terraces one above another, each level filled with plants that reached, spilled, shaded, trees with roots not in soil but in stone, vines draping from clay balconies, flowers blooming beside carved lions. Engineers of ancient days devised pulleys, screws, buckets lifting water from the Euphrates to feed what the desert could not. Not just irrigation, but elevation. Not just plants, but paradise. You walk now where that paradise may have been. The air is dry, yes, the heat rising in slow sheets from the ground, but the stones beneath your feet remember dampness. They remember ivy wrapping around pillars, birds nesting under wooden beams, figs swelling on heavy branches. And in that remembering, you begin to see. Imagine standing on the upper terrace, the city unfolding round you, the palace gleaming in the near distance. Below, the river glides like a long thought. All around you, the hush of leaves swaying, the chatter of bees, the trickle of hidden water. Here, the world does not command, it offers. This was not a garden for food. It was not grown for trade, or tribute, or law. It was grown for wonder, for rest, in the heart of an empire that knew conquest. Here was something that simply breathed, and perhaps that is why it lingers, not in stone, but in longing. The writings we have, by Berossus, by Diodorus, by Strabon, not blueprints. They are glimpses, mentions, descriptions passed along like seeds in the wind. No one can find the ruins of these gardens with certainty. Archaeologists dig, theories shift. Stones do not speak clearly, but stories do. And the story of a garden, raised to reach the heart of a homesick queen, has not stopped blooming. You wander now through what remains walls etched with ancient script, lions carved in glaze, the broken belly of a canal. Babylon is not a ghost, it is a palimpsest, a layering of power, hope, art, forgetting. Even Nebuchadnezzar himself, who ruled for over 40 years, speaks only faintly now, through bricks stamped with his name, scattered like old coins. But the garden whispers louder, perhaps because it was never meant to last, perhaps because it was never meant to prove itself. In that way, it is like sleep, or love, or faith. You lie down in the shade of a crumbled wall. No tree leans over you. No vine spills across the stone. And yet, you close your eyes, and the shade returns. The wind cools. A drop of water slides along a leaf. You are inside the garden, now not the physical one, but the one rooted in thought. The one that has never stopped growing. And when you dream tonight, your dreams will climb. Tear upon tear, bloom upon bloom. Not in perfect accuracy, but in wonder and wonder. Unlike walls, does not fall. The stone beneath your feet is warm, but not sharp. Smoothed by sandals, hooves, and wheels, the royal road stretches ahead like a silk ribbon unrolled through time. It does not rush, it does not climb in grandeur. Instead, it flows. From Susa to Sardis, across mountains, rivers, and open plains. The road carries the breath of Persia not as wind, but as pulse, as order stretched gently across the land. You are walking now, but slowly. That is the only way to feel it. 2. See how the road was built not merely to conquer, but to connect. Along its edges, stations, wait places where horses rest, where riders change, where messages pass without pause. You pause here, though, because you are not delivering decree or coin, you are receiving memory. Persia is wide, so wide that even the sky must lean in to see it all. And yet, you feel its touch in each pebble beneath your step. The empire of Cyrus, Darius, and Xerxes is not only armies and palaces, it is this: a courier galloping across wind-worn fields, a merchant balancing baskets of saffron and salt, judge traveling from one province to the next with tablets tucked beneath his robes. You step into one of the postal stations. Its walls are of mud brick, its doorway arched, cool in the shade. Inside there is water, a bowl of dates, a cushion to rest. Everything is quiet, no shouting, no weapons drawn, just the murmur of a system working. Persia's power is not loud. It does not shout itself into history. It settles itself into pattern, further down the road. The capital city of Persepolis begins to rise, not in height, but in grace. The columns are tall, but slender. Their tops curl like blooming flowers. The stairs are long, shallow, meant to be climbed slowly, in ceremony. You follow them. At the top, the carvings begin, dignitaries bearing gifts, lines of men with folded hands, robes swaying like soft waves. No one rushes, no one begs. This is not tribute wrung from pain. This is order built on rhythm, and still there is silence. Not the absence of life, but the hush of vastness. The Persian kings did not rule with frenzy. They ruled with scale, with the wisdom to let other cultures breathe. Aramaic, Elamite, Babylonian, these tongues were not crushed. They were catalogued, recorded, preserved, like gardens of thought. The Persians did not burn. They listened. You walked through the hall of 100 columns, where light filters through spaces between stone like mist through a forest. You feel small, but not diminished. The space is meant to hold all people. Darius once stood here, or so they say, his voice steady, his hand light on the arm of his throne. His greatest accomplishment was not battle. It was the idea that a single empire could feel like many nations at peace. Even in taxation, there was clarity. In governance, fairness. In roads like the one you walk, there was a wish that no province feel alone, that no voice be out of reach. This is why the couriers changed horses every few miles, not to rush, but to endure. And yet, like all things, the empire bends toward twilight. You feel it first in Persepolis. The stairs still shine, but the people have scattered. The gold is packed away. Alexander is coming. The fire is coming. Some say the palace burned by accident. Others say it was vengeance. It doesn't matter now. The flames rose. The columns crumbled. The road, once vibrant with riders, grew quiet again. And yet Persia did not die. It softened. You sit now beside a broken mile marker on the royal road. The dust has returned, but still, beneath your body, the stone remembers. Not in words, in where, the smoothness where footsteps passed, the warmth of long journeys taken. Persia is not a relic. It is a rhythm still moving through history's bloodstream. In every organized post, in every passport's logic, in every path that says this place belongs to many. The Persian breath continues. The stars begin to prick the sky. The desert wind turns cooler. In the distance, a shape moves slowly, a traveler on the old road, alone, yet part of something ancient. You lie back, eyes open to the dark. This was never a story of glory shouted into war. This was a story of miles, of systems, of whispers across sand. The road continues. He stands at the edge of a map, eyes open wide under stars that no one in Macedonia ever named. Behind him lies empire, a head myth, and here, in the quiet before sleep, you feel it too, the ache of something just beyond knowing, a world not yet walked, a name not yet spoken. You are standing beside Alexander, not the conqueror of legends, but the boy who still believes in the shape of his longing. The night air is still, but it holds the warmth of days spent crossing deserts and rivers, mountains and cities. This is not a place to rule. This is a place to wonder, to imagine that the sky curves down toward some final ocean, some divine horizon, and that it might be touched. If only you walk far enough, fast enough, hard enough. He dreamed of Achilles, slept with Homer beneath his pillow, believed that glory was not an outcome but a language, a way to live that carved your name into wind and rock. And yet now, here at the edge of India, the stars seem very old, older than desire, older than war. They blink down not with praise, but with silence. You follow his path backward, softly, through Babylon, where he was crowned, through Susa, where he married for alliance, through Egypt, where the oracle of Siwa named him Son of God. Not all men believe that title, but Alexander did not seek belief. He sought continuity, to carry one world into another, like a lamp passed hand to hand. He did not merely conquer, he renamed cities, rivers, even the wind. Alexandria by the Nile, Alexandria by the sea. Alexandria tucked into hills where no Greek had stepped. You imagine his voice calling across plains, speaking Persian to governors, Greek to soldiers, Aramaic to merchants. A man who wore many clothes, many gods, many masks, and yet inside he was still the boy from Pella who had once looked out from the palace and whispered to the horizon, I will go there. But glory does not rest, it presses. And with every step eastward, the empire stretched thinner, the air grew heavier. The elephants of India were not like the horses of Thessaly. The rains did not fall with Greek rhythm. His men grew tired, their hearts tethered to homes now distant as myths. In the hush of campfires, they no longer spoke of honor. They spoke of mothers, of wives, of soil that did not feel foreign, and so they turned back. But something in him did not. Alexander returned with them, yes, but part of him never left the edge. He brought seeds of plants unseen in the West, scrolls filled with languages he'd never heard before, images of gods with many arms and many eyes. He filled Babylon with astronomers, engineers, dreamers. He planned canals, libraries, a bridge. Across the Persian Gulf, he wanted the world to not only be his it, had to know itself through him. Yet the body has its limits. Even the godson, even the lion dash-hearted, he falls ill. Quickly, or perhaps slowly, across years. The fever takes him in a room surrounded by maps, surrounded by the hush of attendants who do not know what to say when gods begin to sweat. He whispers, his last words, and clear, like all final things. Some say he named a successor, others say he left it to the strongest. But perhaps he said nothing at all. You sit beside him now, not to mourn, but to understand. His head rests on a rolled map, eyes open to a ceiling painted with stars. His breath is slow, not noble, not divine, just human. And yet it is full of the rhythm of roads crossed, of languages mingled, of dreams carried too far and not far enough. The empire shatters, yes, divided among generals, rewritten, forgotten, retold. But the idea of connection, of curiosity, of names traveling further than feet remains, in every city that blends to cultures, in every library that translates the sacred into the strange, in every hand that reaches across borders to draw a shared future. Alexander still dreams. You lie down now at the edge of your own night. You think of the boy who raced toward the unknown, not to possess it, but to become it. You think of maps not yet drawn, of roads not yet named, of stars that do not blink for kings or empires, but for the quiet dreamer walking slowly beneath them, and in that thought you finally rest. The world does not end with fire or storm. It ends with a pause, a soft halt in the wind, a gaze cast toward the farthest horizon. That is where you begin tonight, beside a man not known for his stillness, but remembered for what he chased. You are not standing on a battlefield, nor in the halls of a palace. You are standing at the edge of a thought, a dream, the place where maps lose their confidence and stars begin to whisper beyond language. Here is Alexander, not the great, not the conqueror, just Alexander, thoughtful, breathing. He was not born into legend, he was born into longing. The son of Philip, the king of Macedonia, and Olympias, who claimed descent from gods. A child who heard stories of Achilles before he learned to walk properly, who carried the Iliad beneath his pillow, reading by oil lamp until the words blurred and became music in his sleep. Before he ever lifted a sword, he had already lifted a myth and made it his mirror. Now you walk with him not behind, not beneath, but beside. The night is deep and still. Somewhere behind you lie deserts crossed, rivers forded, walls breached. You smell dust, horse sweat, unfamiliar spices, the cold scent of distant mountains. The men in his camp sleep restlessly, dreaming of home, their mothers, the sea. But Alexander does not sleep. He watches the stars, not for omens, but for openings. His whole life, the world was not enough, and so he walked through it. From Greece to Egypt, from Egypt to Persia, and from Persia into lands that had only ever existed in story. Cities bent to him, kings folded like parchment, The known world cracked open before him like a ripe pomegranate, seed by seed. But he never stopped moving, even as temples rose behind him in his name, even as statues were cast in his likeness, even as the name Alexandria spread across the earth like a spell. He pressed forward, toward something more, toward something that never quite stepped into reach. You see him now in his quiet moments, not the commander in gilded armor, but the dreamer in worn sandals. His cloak is weather-stained. His hands carry the dust of every nation. His eyes hold the weight of stories still unwritten. For Alexander does not only desire power, he desires understanding. He speaks Greek, yes, but also Aramaic, Persian, and fragments of tongues from traders and farmers. He listens, not always kindly, not always patiently, but intently, as if truth might come from the least expected voice. He built libraries before he built fortresses, encouraged marriage between his soldiers and local women, not out of sentiment, but strategy. Let the roots mingle, he thought. Let the empire be not a scar, but a graft, a tree from many soils. You pass through Babylon again. The city stretches, wide in the moonlight, with its terraced ziggurats, its bronze gates, its calm Euphrates drifting past lamp-lit markets. He entered this place not as a destroyer, but as an inheritor. Babylon did not burn for him, it breathed. Astronomers came to his court. Philosophers sat beside generals. He planned to make this the new center not of war, but of learning. From here, he would stretch further, Arabia, India, perhaps even the edge of the sea where the sky touches, water like a whispered promise. Each morning they would wake before the sun and begin to copy letter by letter, scroll by scroll, washing before each sacred word, careful not to break the rhythm of breath and ink. You can almost hear the scratch of the reed pens, the soft unrolling of parchment, the faint chant of verses being checked aloud. They believed in cycles of time, of cleansing, of return. And when they sensed that their own days might end in fire or exile, they did not panic. They packed their texts into jars, sealed them with cloth and resin, and placed them in caves, not for themselves, for someone else. Someone like you. You kneel beside one now. The parchment is delicate, but not destroyed. You read slowly. Light shall rise over the darkness, a line from a hymn. But it is more than verse. It is hope, folded and hidden in the folds of the earth. The scrolls speak of angels and rules, of messiahs and measurements, of feasts and forbidden acts. They are not one voice. They are a chorus. Disagreements preserved side by side. Visions written next to warnings. This is not a library. It is a landscape of thought. And it breathes. For nearly 2,000 years they slept. Earthquakes passed above. Armies marched. Flags changed. But no one found them until that boy threw a stone. And when they surfaced, the world shifted. Scholars gasped. The oldest biblical texts ever discovered. Lost psalms. Alternate versions. Words once believed vanished forever, now whispering again, not loudly, carefully. You sit with one of the scrolls. Its edges are frayed. A worm once ate through a word, but most remains. The calligraphy is steady, the writer unknown. And yet you feel them, not as a ghost, but as a companion. Someone who bent over this very page by lamplight, wondering if their world was ending and writing anyway. Why do we bury what we love? Because we believe it may return. Because we believe someone, someday, will care enough to dig. The scrolls remind you that silence is not always absence. Sometimes it is storage. You lie back now on the cave floor, the stone cool against your shoulder blades. Overhead, the rock curves like the inside of a closed fist. But you are not afraid. The world has not ended. It has only paused, waiting. You close your eyes and breathe with the scrolls. Their words drift like dry petals through the dark. Sleep finds you gently here held in the quiet arms of thought preserved. And somewhere in the hush between waking and dream, you hear it. A line written by hands long gone, speaking not to history but to you. Write what is true, hide what is. Sacred, let time do the rest. You are standing at the edge of the Taklamakan desert, where the wind moves with secrets in its breath. The air tastes of dust and cumin, of distant spices carried by time. Before you, a thin path cuts through, the golden silence not paved in stone, but traced in memory. This is not a road like others. It bends and doubles back. It splits, disappears, reappears, and yet it connects, like a thread through the world's wide garment. The Silk Road, it never had a single name. It wasn't truly a road. It was many paths woven into one long hush of exchange. From the green courts of China to the marble ports of Rome, from the whispering sands of Persia to the crowded bazaars of India. It carried not just silk, but stories. You walk now among the camel caravans, moving at the pace of breath and hoofbeat. The sun is warm, but not cruel. Bells chime from the animals' harnesses' soft music above the sand. Around you are traders with skin of every tone, eyes shaped by every compass point. Languages rise and fall like flocks of birds, Sogdian, Arabic, Sanskrit, Greek, and yet they speak without needing translation, because trade speaks in gestures. In wait, in trust, you reach out to touch a bolt of silk. It's light as wind, cool as moonlight. It carries the scent of mulberry leaves and village dye vats. This cloth began with a worm spinning in a cocoon, tended by hands beneath a Chinese roof. Now it crosses mountains on the back of a mule, tucked beneath sand and cinnamon, destined for the robe of a Roman noble or a bishop's altar. But this road is not only for goods, it is for thought. In the cities along the route Samarkand, Baktradunyangi, you find temples beside mosques, Buddhist scrolls resting near Persian poetry, statues of the Buddha carved with Greco-Roman curls, coins bearing the faces of kings who ruled lands they never stepped foot on. A map drawn in ideas, not borders, and it is along this path that paper travels. Yes, paper, that quiet revolution, invented in Han China. It moves westward in silence, carried on donkey carts, and in the satchels of wandering scholars. It replaces clay, replaces parchment, replaces the limits of how thought is preserved. Thanks to it, a monk can copy sutras in a cave in Afghanistan. A scientist in Baghdad can sketch the stars. A poet in Damascus can fold grief into verse. You follow the paper trail now, past the great libraries that rise along the Weni Shaper, Merv, and eventually the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, where Greek philosophy is translated into Arabic, where Indian numerals become global, where stars are measured not for myth, but for meaning, all because of a road, and a willingness to walk it. You sit beside a merchant now, sipping a bowl of hot, thin tea. His wares are modest beads, wool, a few scraps of lapis from the Afghan hills, but his stories are rich. He speaks of bandits and snow, of oases lit, like dreams, of cities that vanish behind him like sandcastles. He says the road teaches you patience, teaches you trust, teaches you how small the world really is when you listen. And then, one evening, you find yourself in Dunwanga City, carved from stone where monks have etched entire libraries into cave walls. Here, the wind hushes, lanterns glow like memory. You step into one of the caves. The walls breathe color, bodhisattvas with wide eyes, dragons curling through blue skies, stars drawn with golden ink. And there, rolled in a niche, you see it, a scroll left centuries ago, still legible, still waiting. You hold it gently, the script flows like water, a poem, a prayer, a map of the mind. You do not need to read the language to feel the message. It says only this: we passed through here, we cared enough to leave a trace. The Silk Road did not last forever. Empires rose and fell. The Mongols widened it, then war narrowed it again. Sea trade became faster, safer. The path grew quiet. Cities shrank. Caravan bells fell silent. But the thread never truly snapped. It lingers in languages that still borrow from one another, in spices that flavor foreign kitchens, in art styles that carry echoes from across the world. It lingers in you as you trace your fingers over a piece of embroidered cloth and wonder who else once wore it, who else once stitched it in the light of a different moon. You lie down now beneath a sky not owned by any empire. The stars above are the same ones seen by Persian astronomers, Chinese poets, and Roman traders. The desert breathes around you. Quiet, vast, familiar. You close your eyes, and in the darkness behind your lids, you see the road again, glimmering, winding, not made of stone, but of memory. And memory, when passed from hand to hand, becomes soft as silk, and just as strong. The sea air tastes of salt and regret. You are standing where the ancient city meets the water, where ships once arrived not only with goods, but with knowledge sealed in scrolls, wrapped in leather, carried across wind and storm. This is Alexandria, in Egypt, under the gaze of the lighthouse that once touched the clouds. But tonight, we do not climb the tower. Tonight, we descend into the hush of the library, the one that burned. You enter slowly, with bare feet on stone. The halls echo. You do not hear fire here not. Yet, you hear thought, thousands of thoughts. Not shouted, but whispered onto parchment. You walk past shelves that hold the breath of the world: mathematics, astronomy, poetry, medicine, politics, myth, song. Scrolls from Athens and Babylon, from India and Carthage, from unknown places whose names now sleep beneath desert sand, founded in the 3rd century BCE under the reign of Ptolemy I. The Library of Alexandria was not a temple of silence, it was a storm of curiosity. Scholars lived here, wrote here, argued here. The goal was not just to gather all the knowledge of the world, it was to understand how it fit together. You sit now beside one of them. He's sketching a star chart on papyrus, dipping his pen slowly, mouth slightly open in quiet awe. His robes are simple, his mind is not. He tells you that the earth might be round, that light might bend, that language carries the seed of law. You nod, you do not speak. To interrupt him would be to interrupt the unraveling of the cosmos. And yet, as you walk deeper into the halls, you begin to feel something else. A tension, a thread pulled tight. Empires shift, the Ptolemies weaken, the Romans arrive. Julius, Caesar, Cleopatra, fires kindled in war. Some say the first flames came during Caesar's siege of the city. Others say they came later. Many say they came more than once. The truth is unclear. But you see the burning now, not as a single moment, but as a slow erasure. First, a few scrolls lost, then a wing of the building, then years of silence, then rebuilding, then decline, then another fire, and another, until the last copy of a forgotten text is the only one, and one morning it is gone. You stand in a room lit only by a few oil lamps. The shelves are thinner now. You touch the air where a scroll once was. The dust still remembers its weight. A few charred fragments lie in a corner, blackened curls of thought. One edge holds a single word. You cannot read it, but you feel its meaning. Almost not all was lost. Knowledge flows like water. If you dam it, it will find another course. Ideas from Alexandria surfaced again centuries later, translated into Arabic, into Latin, into the tongues of scholars who never saw the Nile but drank from its memory. But still, what was lost here was not just paper. It was possibility. You walk out into the courtyard. The sky is open now. You look up and see the stars. The same ones Hypatia once taught about here, before she was murdered in the street by those who feared her mind. You feel her presence still, not in fear, in calm, in the steady breath of a woman who refused to look away from the truth. And you begin to understand the library was never only a place. It was a practice, to gather, to question, to preserve, to risk, because every scroll holds a voice, and every voice matters. You sit at the water's edge now, where the sea laps gently against the old stones. The lighthouse is gone, the scrolls are gone, but you are here, and so are their echoes. You close your eyes, and you hear it, a line of verse, spoken by a long-dead poet, a formula scrawled in the margins by a forgotten mathematician, a map of a world no one ever found but dreamed of anyway. Sleep drifts in like a tide, soft and inevitable, and in the hush between one breath and the next, you remember, fire can burn the page, but not the hunger that wrote it. To gently end the full series after the final chapter, and now you rest at the far edge of a very old world. You have walked among sun-baked bricks and reed-roof homes, through temples where gods once whispered, in the wind, and libraries that breathed in clay and silence. You have met kings who dreamed in cuneiform, astronomers who measured time by stars, and poets who sang the flood into memory. But Mesopotamia was never just a place. It was a rhythm, a way the world first learned to turn its thoughts outward, to mark, to shape, to share. Tonight, its rivers still flow gently through your sleep. The cradle still rocks, soft and slow, not to wake you but to remind you. Even the loudest cities began with quiet hands in mud. Even the greatest ideas began in dust, so rest now, deeply. History does not ask you to remember everything, only to carry the hush that made remembering possible.